They say pleasure is the reward. But what if that's just the disguise? What if the chocolate, the scroll, the lust, the laugh are just shadows dressed in costume, masking something way more ancient and way more painful? Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt full, truly full, without needing anything else? Not just satisfied, not just distracted, but deeply, completely untouched by craving. Because here's the truth. We are living in an age of pleasure, but we're starving. Carl Jung once said that the very things we chase for comfort are often the same things that block us from healing. And today, we're going to look at pleasure in a way you've probably never seen it before. Let's begin. Picture this. You wake up. First thing, you grab your phone. Not because anything urgent happened, not because you want to, just because it's a habit. Stronger than hunger. You scroll. You see a meme. You laugh for 3 seconds. Then you forget it. And then, another meme. Another clip. Another scroll. And somewhere in that endless feed, your entire day disappears. But the ache inside you, that's still there. You put the phone down. Maybe grab something sweet, or salty, or both. Then that strange guilt sets in. You weren't hungry. Not really. You were looking for something, but it wasn't food. And honestly, it wasn't dopamine either. It was silence. It was escape. It was that brief pause in a storm you've never even tried to name. Jung had a word for what's behind all this, the shadow. He believed that every person has one, a hidden self we bury beneath distraction. And pleasure? It's the shovel. You eat, but you're not hungry. You scroll, but you're not curious. You desire, but not because you love. That's not choosing joy. That's choosing numbness. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most pleasure isn't really pleasure. It's relief. Relief from having to feel, from being present, from self-awareness. But the cost is high, because every hit of fake pleasure deepens your hunger for the real thing. And when you can't find that real thing, you start to feel broken. You're not broken. You're just unaware. Unaware that you've been trained to mistake escape for enjoyment. Unaware that what you think of as pleasure is often just a symptom, not a solution. So let's go back. You're 6 years old. You cry. No one really listens. Eventually you learn feeling bad gets you nothing. But when you smile, when you perform, when you distract yourself, that's when people notice. That's when people approve. And that approval feels amazing. So you do it again, and again, and again, until years pass, and now you're an adult. Your pain, unspoken. Your pleasures, loud, louder than your loneliness, louder than your fear, louder than the child inside you who just wanted to be held. But here's the secret most people never realize. Pleasure has memory. Every time you use it to cover up your pain, you're wiring your body to fear stillness. Stillness becomes uncomfortable, unbearable, which is why you can't sit in silence, why you need music in the shower, why even 5 seconds alone with your thoughts feels like torture. Jung knew this too. He saw that pleasure, when misused, becomes the enemy of the soul. Not because it's evil, but because we use it to avoid. And avoidance? That's the real enemy. Before we go further, I want you to try something. If any of this resonates with you, if you've ever felt that strange guilt after indulging in something that was supposed to bring joy, take a moment. Subscribe, not just to support the message, but to remind yourself you're not alone in this. And in the comments below, share what moment hit hardest. Because vulnerability isn't weakness. It's proof that you're finally listening. Now, let me show you the trap. Imagine someone walking across a desert, chasing mirages. Every time they spot one, they run. But when they arrive, it vanishes. Still, they keep going. They think the next one will be real. That's what pleasure is when it comes without purpose. And the irony? Real pleasure, the kind that actually feeds your soul, is quiet. It doesn't beg for your attention. It doesn't scream for validation. It doesn't make you forget. It makes you feel. It's in a deep, honest conversation. It's in finishing something you were afraid to start. It's in waking up one day and realizing you don't need the thing that used to control you. But we don't crave that kind of pleasure because it's not easy. It takes time, effort, patience, and yet it's the only kind worth craving. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And pleasure? It's the most beautiful absurdity we've ever invented. Let's rewind again. You're a child. You fall. Scrape your knee. It stings, so you cry. And someone says, "Here, have a cookie. Don't cry." Or, "Stop crying. Look, a cartoon's on." That moment imprints, not in your thoughts, in your nervous system. Your brain learns. Pain equals punishment. Feeling equals weakness. Solution equals pleasure. So you grow up, you mature. But you still carry that lesson, and without realizing it, you become fluent in distraction. Pleasure becomes your language, your translation. It speaks when you're too scared to say, "I'm not okay." It dances when you're too tired to admit, "I'm empty." It smiles when deep down, all you want to do is scream. But here's the truth no one tells you. Every time you replace emotion with stimulation, you drift further from your authentic self. Carl Jung warned, when the inner world is ignored, the outer world becomes louder. And what is pleasure, if not the loudest thing in our lives? The scroll, the buzz, the ping, the binge. They're not entertainment, they're a distraction system, a noise machine. So we don't have to listen. But listen to what? To this, the ache underneath it all, the need for meaning, the desire to belong, the wound of being unseen. Because here's the thing, pleasure isn't bad. In fact, it's sacred when chosen with intention, but it becomes poison the moment it replaces presence. So let me ask you, honestly, have you ever felt guilty after pleasure? After watching that extra episode? After texting someone you shouldn't have? After buying something you didn't need? After eating when you weren't even hungry? That guilt, it's not shame, it's not weakness, it's your soul telling you, "That didn't feed me, it just numbed me." This is where most people misunderstand Jung's concept of the shadow. They think shadow work is about becoming dark, or edgy, or some kind of brooding anti-hero, but that's not it. Shadow work is about honesty. It's about noticing the moments where you betray your true self for a hit of relief, and choosing truth instead of escape. Let me give you a story. There was a person who couldn't stop chasing relationships. They said they were a hopeless romantic, that they just loved love. But every relationship ended the same. Intensity, obsession, crash, repeat. When asked why they couldn't stop, they said, "I just want to be loved." But that wasn't the truth. What they really wanted was distraction. Because being alone meant sitting in silence, and that silence, it was too loud. Turns out, they never learned how to sit with their wounds, so pleasure became the bandage, until the bandage stopped sticking. That story? It's not rare, it's not dramatic, it's not even surprising. Because it's the hidden story of millions of people. People who confuse longing with love, scrolling with joy, numbing with healing. And the real danger, it's not that these pleasures exist, it's that we never stop to ask why we need them in the first place. Here's the myth we have to destroy. Pleasure is not healing. Pleasure is not peace. Pleasure is not power. Pleasure is a tool, and tools, when misused, can become dangerous. So let's flip this around for a second. Think back to the last time you resisted something. You didn't send that message. You didn't open that app. You didn't take that quick fix. And later, you felt proud. You felt steady. You felt peaceful. Why? Because discipline isn't just about control. It's about self-trust. And that's the real high. Because when you trust yourself, pleasure doesn't own you anymore. You're free to choose it, not chase it. That's when pleasure becomes beautiful again. Not a drug, not a trap, not a bandage, a celebration. Now picture this. You walk into a room. There's no noise, no phone, just you. And instead of panicking, you feel home. Not because you have everything, but because you are everything. That's what Jung meant when he talked about individuation. Becoming whole. Not by grinding constantly, not by rejecting fun, but by integrating. By learning how to enjoy pleasure without using it to escape yourself. By learning how to sit in silence and actually like the person who's there with you. That's the goal. But you can't get there by chasing high after high. You get there by slowly, quietly, turning down the volume on your distractions and listening to the ache underneath. So what does that actually look like? It looks like catching yourself when you reach for the phone and asking, what am I trying not to feel right now? It looks like letting yourself feel the loneliness without sugarcoating it, not patching it up with sugar or sex or a scroll. It looks like choosing the slower pleasure, the one that takes time, that requires presence, that comes after effort. Because here's the hidden truth. Real pleasure isn't instant. It's earned. The best laugh? It's with someone who knows your heart. The best meal? After a day where you actually worked towards something. The best connection? After a conversation where you were seen, not just swiped. So let me pause for a second. If something inside you is stirring right now, good. That's what awakening feels like. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's quiet. It's a decision. The decision to stop chasing band-aids for bullet wounds, to meet yourself, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Jung believed our deepest struggles aren't from trauma itself, but from refusing to face what trauma left behind. And pleasure, when we use it unconsciously, is the perfect tool to avoid ever facing it. But now that you see it, what will you do? So here we are. You've heard the warnings. You've felt that quiet echo of recognition. You've watched the pretty mask of pleasure start to slip. Now comes the part most people never reach. The part that doesn't just sting, it shatters. Because to truly reclaim your life from false pleasure, you have to admit something hard. Something most of us avoid for years. You've betrayed yourself. Not once, not dramatically, but quietly, consistently, daily. Every time you reached for the quick fix, every time you said, just 5 more minutes, every time you dodged the silence because it felt too loud, too honest, every time you whispered to yourself, this makes me feel good, when deep down, it was just helping you forget. But hear me, this isn't about shame. This is about awakening. You're not broken for seeking comfort. You're not weak for wanting the ache to stop. You were surviving. And now, you're ready to live. Because once you see the loop, once you understand that most pleasure wasn't joy but sedation, everything changes. The party doesn't hit the same. The scroll feels hollow. The hookup feels empty. The sugar doesn't soften the scream. Because the real pain, it was never boredom. It was the absence of self. Let me paint this in a way that sticks. Imagine your life is a house, and inside that house lives your wounded child, your ignored truth, your unhealed memory. But instead of walking through the front door to meet them, you build an amusement park in the yard. You add flashing lights, music, candy, noise, distraction. You throw a party outside the house, while the real you waits inside, unseen. That's what unchecked pleasure does. It builds a carnival on your front lawn so you never go home. But healing, real healing, it's this. You turn down the music. You walk through the silence. You open the front door. You sit with that forgotten child and say, I'm here now. You can speak. That's the work Jung pointed toward. Not to make us addicted to stillness, but to make us unafraid of it. Because silence isn't the absence of life. It's the presence of everything you've been avoiding. And now, here's the climax. The final myth that needs to break. You've been told that pleasure is the goal. That happiness means feeling good. That freedom is doing whatever you want, whenever you want. But that's not freedom. Freedom is not needing to. True pleasure. It's not the chocolate, not the scroll, not the dopamine drip. True pleasure is the moment you realize you no longer need to be distracted from yourself. You can sit in stillness and smile. Not because nothing's happening, but because everything real is finally happening. You become the kind of person who doesn't chase the high, because you already carry peace, and people will notice. They'll say you've changed. You'll speak slower, pause longer, laugh less often, but deeper. They'll ask, why don't you drink as much anymore? Why'd you delete Instagram? Why don't you text back right away? And you'll just smile, because they won't get it. They won't understand that you're not avoiding anything anymore. You're finally here. You're present. And that's what scares the world. Because a person who no longer needs pleasure to feel okay is powerful, uncontrollable, undistracted, unmanipulable. When someone stops needing pleasure to feel okay, they become something the modern world doesn't know how to handle. They stop clicking every ad. They stop craving validation from strangers. They stop filling the silence with sound. Because marketing can't hypnotize a person who's present. Addiction can't cling to a person who listens inwardly. And the world can't sell you peace when you've already found it inside. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And who you truly are is not a dopamine addict. You are not just a bundle of cravings. You are not a consumer of feelings. You are a creator of meaning. And meaning? It's not always fun. It's rarely comfortable. It's often inconvenient, demanding, quietly brutal. But it's real. And it will feed you in a way pleasure never could. So the next time the craving hits, don't fight it. Don't shame it. Just ask yourself, what do I truly need right now? That question, that one question, can change your life. Because it breaks the cycle. It hands you the pen. It reminds you, you are not your hunger. You are the one who chooses how to feed it. So let me leave you with this. You will never look at pleasure the same way again. Not because it's evil, but because now you see it clearly. You'll still laugh. You'll still love. You'll still love. You'll still love. You'll still savor the sweetness of life. But you'll do it with awareness. And that awareness, it will protect you. It will stop you from trading peace for quick comfort. It will make your joy more sacred, your relationships cleaner, your habits stronger, your silence golden. Because the pleasure you don't need to chase is the only kind worth having. And that's where your freedom begins.